Section 5.5 is about writing equations in point-slope form. So this is a new form of the line that we're going to look at called point-slope form. So the first thing I'm going to do is use the formula for slope to write an equation in point-slope form. So we know that slope is m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So I'm going to take a look at an equation for a line that we know one point, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, but we don't know another point. So we've got the point 3, 4, and then we're going to say that there is some other point x, y on the line. And I'm going to use those 2 points to write an equation. So I'm going to use this as x sub 1, y sub 1, and I'm going to use this as x sub 2, y sub 2. So filling in, I get m equals y sub 2 is just my y minus 4 divided by x minus 3. I'm going to take this equation and I'm going to multiply both sides by x minus 3. Okay? So if I multiply both sides of this equation times x minus 3, I'm going to get y minus 4 equals x minus 3 times m. Now, I can look at this graph, and I'm going to say that this graph has a slope of 2. And if we counted on the graph paper, we would be going up 2 and to the right 1. So my slope is 2, and I can plug that in. And then I am going to, first I'm just going to switch sides because I like the y on the left. Y minus 4 equals x minus 3 times m. And then we're going to say y minus 4 equals x minus 3 times 2. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say 2 times x minus 3. Because again, we like to have that coefficient in front. So this is a equation for this line in point-slope form. And in point-slope form, we have the slope in this position, and we have an xy ordered pair in this position. Now you notice that this says y minus 4, even though my equation had 4, and x minus 3, even though my original point, had 3. So please note that this and this are the xy points. The 3 is in the x position, the 4 is with the y. We'll talk about this more in just a second. So this is an example of an equation in point-slope form. So let's look at this. Point-slope form. The linear equation y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1 is written in point-slope form, where x sub 1, y sub 1 is a given point on a non-vertical line and m is the slope of the line. So let's look back at the one we had just a second ago. Y minus 4 equals 2 times x minus 3. Y sub 1 corresponds with this number, so the y value is 4. X sub 1 corresponds with this number, so the x value is 3, and m corresponds with this number, so therefore, I should circle that like I did the others, therefore the slope is 2. So what if I had the equation y minus 1 equals 1/2 x minus 4? You could tell me that that's a line with a slope of 1/2 that goes through the point 4 comma 1. Okay, I'm going to show you one more, and that's when we'll talk about this minus sign in the equation. What if I had y plus 3 equals negative 2 times x minus 4? Well, the original model says x minus x sub 1. So x sub 1 is 4. My slope is negative 2. But this doesn't say y minus. My original equation says minus here, and this says plus. So I want you to think of this as y minus a number. What would I have to subtract to get plus 3? Well, I would have to subtract negative 3. So my y sub 1 value is negative 3. In other words, I have to switch the signs to get my xy ordered pair. I'm going to erase the ink on this side, so copy all that down, and then we're going to do one more. Actually, we'll do two more. So y plus 1 equals negative 1/2 x plus 4, and y minus 2 equals x minus, no, we'll use a plus there, x plus 3. So what is my x sub 1, y sub 1? What is the point that this line goes through, and what is the slope? And what point does this line go through, and what is its slope? Take a minute and see if you can do that. Okay, my x value is here. Since it says x plus 4, I'm going to make that minus 4 for my ordered pair. My y value is over here. Since that says x plus 1, I'm going to use negative 1. And my slope is negative 1/2. Okay, again, my x sub 1, since the model says x minus a number, when I have x plus 3 here, that would have to be x minus a negative 3. So negative 3 is my x. Y already has the minus sign, so the y value is 2. And what's my slope here? It's the understood 1. So again, the value of the x and y ordered pair, the point that this line goes through, is the opposite of the sign shown in the equation, because the model has a minus sign which will flip the sign. This is really important when we start to talk about shifts. Okay? So let's do one. Write the point-slope form of an equation for a line that passes through 1, negative 5 with a slope of negative 3. So we're going to use our model because they want point-slope form. And I'm just going to substitute my values. So y minus, that's my y sub 1 value, a negative 5, equals a slope, negative 3, times x minus our 1. You can see here how when the y value is negative, we end up with y plus 5 in the equation. Okay, and x minus 1 for that one. So pretty simple, just writing and again plugging in the points. Remember in the last section we were using slope-intercept form, and you would be given the slope and the y-intercept for your equation. This time we're given point-slope form. We'll be looking for the slope and for an xy ordered pair, a point and a slope. Here, a slope and an intercept. So depending upon what you're given, you will use different models. So what models do we have? Whoops, let's do this first. Okay, write an equation in point-slope form, so we need a point and a slope, of an equation for a horizontal line that passes through the point 6, negative 2. Well, there's my point. Right? So that's the point that I'm going to use as my x sub 1, y sub 1. What is my slope? What is the slope of a horizontal line? Well, we learned earlier that the slope of a horizontal line is 0. So again, writing my model, point-slope form, and this is a model that you need to learn, memorize. So there's my point-slope model. Here's my point over here. So my x value is 6. My y value is -2, and my slope is 0. So I get y plus 2 equals 0 times x minus 6. 0 times anything is 0. And so my equation is y equals -2. And we found earlier that horizontal lines have equations that are y equals, and since this goes through the point, oops, I should have done that over further. Since this goes through the point 6, -2, it is in fact the line y equals -2. Okay? All right, so we've learned 3 forms of linear equations up to now. Slope-intercept, y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Point slope, y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1, where m is the slope and x sub 1, y sub 1 is a given point. And standard form, it should just have a period, not a comma. But anyway, standard form, ax plus by equals c, where a and b are not both 0. Usually a is non-negative, and a, b, and c are integers whose greatest common factor is 1. So this is a kind of a recap of what we've done so far. I want you to put that in your notes so you have it handy for the next things we're going to do. Okay, write an equation in standard form. So immediately you should be thinking that this is the form you want to use. So let's say we have this as our given, y plus 5 equals -5/4 times x minus 2. And I want to write this in standard form. First of all, my question is, what form is this in right now? So this is in point slope form, and I need to get it to standard form. So I'm going to do a little bit of work. I'm going to first of all distribute. So -5/4 times x is -5/4 x. -5/4 times -2 is +5/2. And if you can't do that right away, please do it off to the side. Remember to put your 2 over 1. These 2 will simplify, -1 over 2, and I end up with a negative times a negative, which is 5 over 2. Okay? So I've done this much. Now keep in mind that in standard form, the variable terms have to be on the left and the constants on the right. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. To do 5/2 minus 5, I need to write that as 5/2 minus 10/2, which is -5/2. So y equals -5/4 x minus 5/2. Add 5/4 x to the right. So 5/4 x plus y equals -5/2. And now I need to get constants, or integers. So if I multiply both sides by 4, the largest denominator, 5/4 times 4 is 5x, 4 times y is 4y, and I get -10 over here. The second thing I have to look at is there any common factor that I can divide by? And there is not. 5, 4, and -10 do not have any common factors other than 1. So that's standard form. Okay? Next, write an equation in slope-intercept form. So I want to get to this form this time. And I'm going to start again with a point slope form. Y minus 2 equals 1/2 times x plus 5. Again, I'm going to distribute. I'm going to add the 2 to both sides. So I get y equals 1/2 x, 5/2 plus 2, that's 5/2 plus 4/2 is 9/2. So that is my equation in slope-intercept form. Okay? So I've created the form that I wanted. Our last task is to write an equation in point-slope form, and we're going to do this from a graph this time. So I'm going to look at a graph where we have the point 2, 1 and the point 6, 4. So 2, 1, 6, 4. And that's the equation that I want to write into point-slope form. So point-slope form again. This is our model. And in order to do this, I need a point and a slope. Well, I've got several points. I need a slope. So let's find a slope. 4 minus 1 over 6 minus 2. So our slope is 3/4. Now, I'm going to put it into my model using either one of the points. The question is, which point do I use? So let's do it with 2, 1. Y minus my y value equals 3/4 times x minus my x value. And I'm going to save some room to do it using the other point in just a minute. And what do I want? Oh, point-slope form, so I'm done. Okay? So let's do another one over here. I could also have done y minus 4 equals 3/4 times x minus 6, using the other ordered pair. Now, it looks like two different equations. However, let's take a look and change this to slope-intercept form. So, y minus 1 equals 3/4 x minus 3/4. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Y equals 3/4 x plus negative 3/4 plus 1, where 1 equals 4/4, is 1/4. All right, let's try the same thing over here. Y minus 4 equals 3/4 x minus, if I distribute and multiply by 3/4, I will get negative 6/2 or negative 3. Let me see, negative 9/2, excuse me. 3/4 times negative 6 over 1 is negative 18/4, which is negative 9/2. All right, add the 4 to both sides. Y equals 3/4 x minus 9/2 plus 4, and 4 would be 8/2. So I get y equals, oh, I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? Who can find my mistake? Because these should end up being the same thing. So 3/4 minus 6. 6 times 3 is 18. 18/4 is negative 9/2. Add 8/2. Oh, look at way back here. Oh, I hope you caught this. My x value is 2. If you didn't catch that, and if you weren't wondering why Mrs. Geating had gone crazy, so I'm going to distribute the 3/4. I will get negative 6/4, which is now negative 2/4, or negative 1/2. That's better. And look at over here, 3/4 x minus 1/2. Perfect. So here's my question, and I'm sorry, go back and look at that again with the right number. I did the wrong order pair. I used 1 1 instead of 2 1. So everything went bad. I hope you saw that as I was working. I want you to take a look at this and see if you can tell me at the beginning of class why we can have two different looking equations in point-slope form, but when I change them to slope-intercept form, they are identical. See if you can think about that, and we'll talk about that at the beginning of class. And that's it.